And we're live. Awesome. Kevin, just give us a thumbs up if Twitch is on and Google's on and YouTube's on and everything's on. We've got Sam Cook in the house, Mr. Insider, here to, enlighten us because, obviously, Sam, thank you for jumping on. I really appreciate your time. We'll dive into it really. I just, I'd prefer if you can just jump in and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of, your background personally, how you jumped into the space, and a little bit about Esports Insider and how you guys got started.
Of course. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, for starters. So yeah, my name's Sam Cook. I'm the co-founder and the managing director of Esports Insider. I printed that. What do you reckon? So ESI we're based in London, and we're a B2B industry news site, media, events company and agency. So we started life in August 2016. That's when we actually went live with the site. We spent the first year very much just making a name for ourselves with the industry news site. We started the events on a B2B basis in 2017. Actually, more local London-only networking events at the Fanatic Bunker when they had that space in Old Shoreditch in East London. Yeah, those were the days, man. And then 2018, 2019, we moved on to bigger and somewhat more glamorous conferences in the UK and indeed in New York, in Manhattan, in LA. We hosted one of the editions of our Hall of Fame. And then we had our biggest event to date last year at Twickenham Stadium, which was ESI London. This year, obviously, we had big plans, which haven't quite happened on the event front. But that said, we've run instead our first ESI Digital Summit at the end of May. And we've got some more, which I can't announce yet, but we've got some more coming soon. Away from the events, we also have ESI Connect, which is essentially our agency service, which is now in partnership with CSM Sports and Entertainment on the brand front. And that helps to bring brands, investors and suppliers into the esports space in the right way and connect them to the rights holders that make sense for them.
Awesome.
That's everything.
No, I know you guys are a worldwide publication and you guys are everywhere. So we'll kind of segment through, the different aspects of what you guys do throughout our conversation.
Sure.
Know that you guys really started off in the content space, and content really is everything at the moment. Obviously, esports and gaming, has really hit it off, especially after COVID and during COVID. And me personally, I follow you guys religiously. So I know that you've also gone into a print. Is that correct? With the
they called us crazy. They called us
the world of gaming.
It probably is kind of crazy. So last year, as a part of our ESI Media, the ESI Media arm of the company, we launched what's called the Esports Journal. And that's a joint venture with LMG, so Latam Media Group, who are based in Buenos Aires, and us in London. So it's been fun time zones wise. But yeah, we released 3 editions last year, and it's an industry. Again, it's very much similar content wise to the ESI site, but it's generally a home for longer form and a bit of a deeper dive content as well. So again, all esports industry and business focused. It's print and digital format. And yeah, we did 3 last year, delivered them and distributed them at our events and at other B2B events like Esports Bar. And now they're also available at Platform, which is an esports and gaming bar restaurant in London, which if you happen to be here, it does really good pizza. And they open again. Nicola will tell me off. I think they open again really soon. I'm not going to say when in case I get in trouble, but really soon. It's near Old Street, and it'll be available there. It's also available at the VI, which is Team Vitality's HQ in Paris. And then, of course, we do the usual distribution at the main events and postal now as well for obvious reasons. But yeah, like generally ESI, we do, with Adam Fitch as editor, we do a lot of fantastic industry coverage and a lot more features stuff than we used to. But features-wise, ESI, I guess the only difference would be features-wise on ESI, it's maybe 800 words on average, something like that, whereas the Esports Journal pieces are like 1,400-ish. For example, like our last edition had Mike Sepso, who's like a bit of a legend in the industry, obviously, and I think Adam spoke to him for about 24 hours and got like, oh God knows, 25. They basically wrote his autobiography and then turned it into a 3-part piece on ESI. And then there's a long form piece on the Esports Journal if you want to read all about Mr. Stepso's life of Candy.
That's fantastic, and it's obviously you're quite the you got the courage to go into print as well. So that's pretty awesome, and good luck with that. What are the kind of the differences that you see between the digital and I'd say still the print side of things? Has that been a challenge, or have you seen kind of the merge between the two fairly simple?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging, right? Of course it is. And for me, kind of the main reason.
There's still an audience for the print,
Exactly. I mean, for me, for like esports, I'm probably pretty old, right? Like, I'm 29 now, and when I like sit down in the morning, I still buy magazines. Like I still get like National Geographic and GQ on occasion. I like to still hold a magazine and read a magazine if it's like a long article. Obviously, I, like everyone, consume most of my news and content digitally now, whether that's on socials or specific sites. But I personally, and maybe I'll be proved wrong longer term, but I hope not, but I still think there is a home for print form content, right? And no one had done it in esports, at least English language, and industry focused to date, at least that I know of. No one had done it. And so, yeah, we tried it. It went pretty well last year, and it's for sure it's going better now. And I think ultimately people still like as well, like it's been
like the feel.
Yeah, exactly. And also it legitimizes it, right? Like one thing that, regardless of how many big numbers we throw around, and League of Legends is kind of on the BBC a bit now, that's great. But we still need that extra level of legitimacy, right? And that extra level of legitimacy will come through a variety of channels, and one of which I think this could help with, because we've had a lot of conversations, for example, with football clubs, like big football clubs, some of the biggest in the world, especially in the UK. And a lot of the times, maybe they know about it now, like with the Premier League and a bit of FIFA here and there, and some doing a bit more than that, like City with FaZe and all sorts. But at the same time, it's often someone maybe my age or even a bit younger that's championing it internally and trying to push it home. But the people that are making the decisions at these football clubs still typically a bit older, probably, at least there's a horrible generalization, but probably don't know what esports is or don't really get it and didn't grow up in the right time. It's a generational thing. So yes, we can exactly. We can just wait, right? We can wait until the people that are around my age, whatever, get into those positions that understand it and that back it more, or we can hope to drive it home faster. And I think something like a print industry magazine like Sports Pro and others do in the sports business space, I think that does help.
No, agreed. And just like referencing the football side of things as well, you still got the match programs and stuff, which are quite popular. So I think events and the physical spaces still provide that area where print is very popular. And I love what you guys are doing print, because definitely the space needs it, and you guys have been pioneers in, I would say, the education space, because it's not just bringing in content on the digital side, but the print side as well. The education side of esports and gaming, I think, is still kind of ways away. We're still a very small audience that are trying to learn about how to get in, especially when it comes to brands and sponsorships, which we'll talk about a bit later. I know that you guys do a bunch of events as well. So one of the questions I had for you is, what do you think needs to happen in the education space? Because I think we're still, quite early on, where people and, investors or stakeholders in the space are trying to get a hold of, where can I, fit in the world of esports and game?
Yeah. You mean education in terms of educating like the other industries and the wider industries?
Well, essentially just educating people about, how to get in, what to do, what are the different verticals. This is where you can spend your money. This is where you can, just pure education. Because I see, ESI is a place where someone can go and kind of, get a little bit about the many different areas of esports specifically, not much in gaming, more on the esports side.
Yeah.
So what do you think needs to happen? I think obviously there needs to be more publications like that, and events, conferences and such, which are more educational to bring in more of the stakeholders into the space.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we've been running events, as I said, now since 2017, and like all the ESI events are strictly B2B, right, and are strictly for that purpose, like for one education and debate within that about the different topics throughout the space, which are ever changing, but still some remain fairly the same panels to what we were doing 3 years ago. And on the flip side, the second, obviously very important one is the networking side as well. But that in essence is kind of education as well a lot of the time, right? And yeah, I think what we struggle with, I guess, but also I think what we excel at and what we spend a lot of time doing, or I spend a lot of my time doing on the event side, is figuring out an agenda and figuring out a range of topics which are both welcoming for, so there's the content for the complete newcomer, right? Let's say you're a brand that Crunchy Nut, their cereal, right? It's great cereal, but you've probably not done anything. I don't think Crunchy Nut have done anything in esports yet, but so you're from Crunchy Nut and you're the brand marketing manager and you come to this conference, and if there's a panel, or if there's only panels which assume a level of knowledge about the esports space, you're probably going to be put off or confused or less inclined to jump into it, right? So we want to do, and we do those kind of like deeper dive sessions for the people that are in the industry or for people around the industry that know all about it more, like the current state of like the CSGO ecosystem, for example. Are there too many tournaments? Something like that could be something that's interesting and worth your time if you know a bit about the space. But for the Crunchy Nut person, they don't care or really know even what CSGO is, right? Not necessarily. So I think we still need the panels for, going to keep using this analogy, for the Crunchy Nut person. There still needs to be that, what can brands do in the esports space, even though we ourselves are getting somewhat bored of that topic. It's still that is still ever changing, and that panel still needs to exist. But yeah, for sure, our events and what we do is education first and foremost.
I completely agree there. And I was just going to jump into, who do you think someone like the Crunchy Nut could learn from as a brand that's done it as a non-endemic in the space right now? So who's done it best in your opinion that you can bring up, and then the Crunchy Nut would kind of look up and say, all right, cool, these guys are not
maybe we could do something too. I mean, mate, there's plenty, right? Like, quite recently, I think it was somewhat under the radar. I can't remember if it was maybe like all German or something, but like quite recently, like SK Gaming did something with Duke, like the men's perfume and aftershave. It was really cool. Like ones like that. There's been like odd shaving brands that have done cool stuff. The betting side, plenty, which I'll bang on about later as I promised you. But these two examples that we often point to. So at our events now, we always do these ESI brand showcases, which are always 30 minutes each, and an example of one rights holder, typically a team or a tournament operator, developer, a game developer, and a brand. And those two have to have launched and run at least a semi-successful campaign, right? That's the idea. And they talk through that as a case study. So we had, for example, at ESI London last year, Albin Vestalot from Riot, from the LEC at least. He talks about their partnership with Beko. So Beko, like Beko, like a company that make like fridges and I don't even know, toasters or kitchen stuff, but they make really nice fridges actually. But they make yeah, you got to try them. But the Crunchy Nut guy, I know what I'm talking about. But those sessions, right, where we don't. Yes, HyperX and Logitech and all of these and Intel have been incredible and continue to be incredible for the space, but it's kind of obvious, right? It makes sense for them. We try to go with the brands that don't make so much sense. Like why are like Louis Vuitton? I'd love to have if they're out there listening. Like Louis Vuitton, that would be amazing. The Beko one is an example. The one we always point to is ESL and DHL, which I guess makes a little bit more sense in a way, but at the same time, it's not like the most obvious brand position, right? But fantastic, and that's because they trusted ESL a lot to do a proper job. But yeah, there's loads that they could learn from. It's just they have to work with, and that's why I always say to brands, like, figure out exactly where you don't just do esports because you've heard the word, or gaming because you've heard the word, and then just like we want to do esports and gaming. Like, that makes absolutely no sense, right? Because both of those terms, esports included, are umbrella terms, right? Which means that game, region, fans, etc., are completely different audiences. So they need
Absolutely.
the more obviously knowledge they have, which is where the events come in, which is where the reading comes in, which is where speaking to the right people comes in. That's vital, because like these campaigns can also go badly. Like everyone always points to the Bud Light one from a good few years ago now, and I'm sure they've learned from it, but that did not go down well. And there's been others since.
Absolutely, and I think with time, you've got so many non-endemic brands jumping in and learning from, where to put their spends, what to do, and how to engage with content, especially in the gaming space. So it's cool to see, and I think with time you'll have you'll get a bunch more case studies than we have now, and a lot more learnings. So definitely interesting to see how more brands want to jump on.
For sure.
Segue a little bit into the event side of things. I'd love for you to jump into a little bit more about what you guys do in the event space. I know that you guys were more on the physical side of things, and I know that you've thrown digital conferences, the ESI Summit last month, or was it the month before?
Like June, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know you were doing something in New York as well, so I know that the pandemic hit and things have changed. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think things are slowly moving towards digital when it comes to conferencing and networking and these kind of things, or do you think we'll kind of jump back into the physical realm, and not just the conferencing, but even you can call it tournaments and activations and all of that? When do you think will it ever be the same again?
Yeah. So speaking firstly from our experience and our thinking on the B2B side and the conferences side, last year we hosted, I think, 9 events. We had the forum series, which were like evening or one day only, smaller, like mini conferences, basically, with like 1 or 2 at most panels and presentations. They were like London, Manchester, Brighton, all UK. We had ESO London, our biggest 2-day conference. We had which includes the Clutch, like our pitch investment competition. ESI New York, we did for the first time last year. The Hall of Fame, as I mentioned, in LA. It's like loads of physical events, and like these events cost a lot of money, especially in New York. Take a lot of time, and also take a lot of time out of everyone's schedules and calendars, right? And like, obviously, like, New York's New York. It's one thing getting like the ticket cost approved. It's another thing getting the time approved. It's another thing the scheduling being all right. It's another thing booking a hotel room in Manhattan. My God. And then obviously all the costs attributed to it. And yeah, physical events are always going to be better for the networking side. They're always probably going to be a little bit better on the actual education and debate side, right? But at the same time, there were a lot of people that didn't go to our ESI London events, now ESI New York events, because they were based in LATAM or they were based in Southeast Asia. And so everything makes that a lot more difficult. The digital events, the cost price isn't so much of an issue. The access isn't an issue, really. It's just the time zone considerations, right? So that whilst the ESI Digital Summit was our biggest event in terms of attendees. Like we were quoting and hoping for 500 attendees, and we hit like 540 odd, something like that. And it was also far more of a global event than we've ever had. And that sounds, I think, kind of probably obvious to anyone thinking about it, but it's also, I think, worth reiterating and repeating. Maybe people don't, or that's overlooked, right? Of course, like we were going to do New York at the end of April. I'm sure it would have been great, but at the same time, it would have been more NA focused, and it would have been more Western European focused. Probably wouldn't have been so many people from Asia, wouldn't have been so many people from Latin America, even because of the cost point of it and everything else. So the digital events are something that we're for sure going to continue when we can run events normally again. Will we still do digital events? Of course, yeah. I still think they have a lot of value, and we will do them for sure. But we'll do them bigger and less of them, and then supplementary in terms of the forum series. Big exclusive. I think the forum series is dead, and we will be doing digital events kind of in their place. And then on the flip side of that, on the in terms of like the tournaments for the fans and everything, will that go back to normal? Yeah, absolutely. I think it will. I mean, like esports have been running digital events for years. and then graduated somewhat to the physical events, right? And things like the international, things like Katowice, ESO1 Cologne, and plenty more prove.
They'll come back.
Yeah, they prove that people do want to go to these events if there's a reason to. And yeah, that for sure will come back. It's just the same with everything else sports-wise as a matter of time.
No, definitely, and I think there's going to be a lot more of digital, moving towards the digital platforms and kind of things there. And then, if you think about it, obviously you've got a lot more money to spend on marketing and putting events out there and hosting a more global crowd essentially. So it does make sense, and it does work when you're looking to host something a little bit smaller. I think a lot of tournaments are finding that it's definitely cost efficient to just keep everything digital, and you're able to
exactly.
Bring in a lot of a lot more people and a lot more global people as well. Look, I'd love to highlight a little bit of the media landscape from your perspective. Obviously, you've been on the media side of things for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts about sponsorships and how brands. Obviously, you have a lot of brands looking to get into the space. Some of them are very confused. How would you advise brands to kind of look into the esports and gaming side? What's the best way, in your opinion, to jump into a sponsorship, whether it's a team, event, tournament, player, streamer?
Yeah.
There obviously so many different ways of doing it, and I think, just like we were saying, the non-endemic, someone that's not very involved in the space, gets very lost.
Yeah.
And then again, you've got not just that, you've got different games and different audiences, from the different games. So what would you advise for a brand that's looking to jump into the space and, kind of still doesn't know how? What would they have?
Am I allowed to just really hard sell what we do?
Do it.
No, but I mean, yeah, speak to us, right? That almost read. Yeah, just give me a call. But no, read sites like ours, like Esports Observer, like Dexerto as well. Dexerto is far more like consumer and fan facing, but as well, it's good to understand that helps you understand the wider landscape as well, right? Like, read as much as you can, consume as much content as you can. It is. And it can be, and that's what we try to help with, particularly to make it less overwhelming. But it is overwhelming, because I think first and foremost is that going back to like Crunching Up person, right? Like Crunching Up person as new brand market manager, I've been told to explore esports and gaming. So I don't know anything about that really. Like, I play a little bit of FIFA at home, and that's about it. There's a big difference between the video game landscape and doing things and activations in that world, like all the big announcements with Fortnite, like in game, right? Like the what's the director called?
Like the Travis Scott.
Oh no, it's like connected, but is it? Oh, his name's gone out of my head. A really famous film director who had the trailer that was in Fortnite recently, but like that has got nothing to do with esports, right? But there is an esports side to Fortnite as well. So I think first and foremost, educating yourself about the difference between video games and esports. Because like video games as an industry is bigger than films and music combined. Esports ain't. Esports is nowhere near that. Esports is just a slice of the very big video games pie, and it's becoming a bigger slice, but it's always going to be a small part of it, right? It's the competitive side of it. And there's, I think, like with a nod to, again, like DHL, Bico, and plenty of others, there's opportunities for pretty much all types, like Louis Vuitton and Gucci now, we've seen with Fnatic. Like, there's opportunities for all sorts of brands to get involved in the esports space. But also there's opportunities for all sorts of brands to get involved 100% in the gaming space, which obviously then includes the streaming side of things. Because I think a lot of the brands, maybe like someone sees or hears about Ninja at long last, right? Or sees the Adidas poster. They're like, oh, cool, we want to do that. Like, that's esports, right? Like, not really, no. And that's the whole that's the gaming side of it, of which esports is like connected. But understanding that first and foremost, and then the next journey is understanding the breakdown of the esports ecosystem, which takes possibly even more time. So be patient with it.
And let's stay on that note and kind of break it down. So obviously, when you're looking to get into the gaming space, you have to know what game you're getting into. There's so many different influencers that you can look to, collaborate with. The Dr. Disrespect, who's interesting. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
The ninjas of the world, and you've got different games, different audiences, different streamers that essentially you can tackle different audiences there.
Yeah.
What would you do on the esports side, and how does that differentiate? How's that different?
I mean, it ranges wildly, right? And this is what we always tell brands and try and explain to brands after the difference between the esports and gaming bit. The esports itself, I think it bothers me when some media outlets and who knows what else compares esports to the NBA, for example. Like, it's meaningless. Like, I'll watch some and play some video games. I don't have a clue about League of Legends or Dota. But, I'll watch a bit of CS:GO and I play Call of Duty and FIFA, for example, and Rocket League. Even I'm terrible at it. But that doesn't mean I care or know anything about League of Legends or Dota, right? The same way as in sports, I'm a football fan and a boxing fan and a tennis fan. I hate rugby. I could care less about basketball. I don't really know the rules. Right? They're talking about 3-pointers, right? But it's completely different, and the audiences are generally completely different as well. Like CS:GO that's why the bookmakers love CS:GO, because the core audience is generally the core audience of sports betting sites, which is 18 to 30 male. And CS:GO is heavily skewed to that and to the male side of things as well. Different games aren't. Fortnite, for example, typically a lot younger. Rocket League is younger. Other games are more have more female players, for example. Games are popular in different regions, like in Indonesia or India. PUBG Mobile is massive, and that again is something that's worth understanding. Is in esports you have PC, you have the consoles, and you have mobile, and mobile is growing incredibly fast. PC has been arguably pretty much still is the pinnacle of skill level and all of that, and the top esports titles in terms of developed ecosystems and consistent fan bases and viewerships. But mobile potential is huge.
Before we jump into, because that's a huge topic, is the mobile versus console versus PC, and how do I even get into, because the mobile audience is completely different than I would say the traditional PC player, the console player.
Yeah.
But just to, take a few steps back, you can compare those sponsorships to the traditional sports side, right? So
yeah,
when you're looking at, sponsoring a team or, a tournament or a player, it's very similar to, sponsoring essentially Wayne Rooney or a player in the EPL.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of jump in. I'd love to get your thoughts on the comparisons between the two, because it's very similar. And just like you said, you've got different games which are similar to different games, games in sport. And so it's a very similar approach. But love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where
is that the right way to look at it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely comparisons to be drawn between the two, right? A lot of them, it is just it's a shirt sponsor, or it's a shoulder sponsor, or it's this or it's that in terms of the apparel side. I mean, it's also worth understanding that because this is very much with a view to how sponsorship and works, how important it is in esports right now, is that some people question them, but the Newzoo numbers are still a good basis to work off of, right? Regardless of whether you believe the extent of some of the numbers, it's still a very good basis to work off of. And what they say in terms of the current, the value of the esports industry, I think the latest one was reportedly worth an estimate of 1.1 billion, something like that. And of that, it was about 690 million was sponsorship related. Whereas in sports, at least for the top clubs, a lot of the revenue, most of the revenue is often derived from the commercial, the media rights, right? And because people pay to be able to watch football in short. No one really pays to watch esports events online. Will that ever change? Can it? How will that look? There's a whole other debate that we won't get into here because that would take a while. But yeah, and that's a whole other thing. But obviously, because of that, both tournament organisers are the ones that the third parties that don't own any rights to the games, that only make money in other ways, they struggle. And in turn, the teams struggle because of that lost revenue channel, right? Which means they need to make it up in different ways, which ultimately means that, like, some, if they've got a big enough fan base, can rely more on like the apparel and merchant side of things. But let's be honest, it's still going to be the big brand sponsors that are super important, which in turn means that despite esports teams working on more limited resources, they generally have to be more creative. And I think that's kind of it. And that's why you see a lot of these cool campaigns. And also because like the DHLs and the others, maybe they know football, right? They know that if we sponsor Manchester, actually not Man United anymore because Champions League ain't guaranteed anymore, is it? But if we sponsor Manchester City, then we're like, I'm sure. But if they sponsor Man City, it's up there as well. If they sponsor Man City, then they're guaranteed. Like if we sponsor the front of the shirt, God knows what that costs with City these days. But we know that we're guaranteed X amount of games on Sky Sports each season, blah, 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 on the Champions League. We know what we're getting. We know who, like, eyeballs that we're reaching. We know who that audience is. We feel safe spending that money because we know what we're getting. We've done it before. It's worked. Everyone's happy, easy. Esports is very new to pretty much all these brands. So, and also the esports calendars often are nowhere near as fixed and as solid ahead of times as like Man City can guarantee X, Y, Z. Fnatic can probably promise X, Y, and maybe Z, if you know what I mean. Like it's different. And so because of that, the brands also, and also just a lack of knowledge. So the brands have to trust the rights holders or the agency they're working with on their behalf more, which means that leads, hopefully and oftentimes, to more creative campaigns. And so the difference, I would say, is that you generally get brands that are big brands being more experimental in the esports space than you do in football and rugby and the others, somewhat because they're forced to be. And like stuff like the DHL example, if you watch it, it's like the advert that they made for the Dota 2 events. Super cool. There's loads of like in-jokes that I don't know Dota. I don't understand them, but it's still like a cool video and it's still a cool activation. And at the physical events, they made this FE bot thing that went around giving out God knows what, free deliveries, I don't know, to fans. But it was cool. And like it was funny whether you didn't really know Dota, and if you knew Dota, like it was really cool. And stuff like that is great. And you don't see that in football, right? Like it's noted, I'm a Charlton fan. I don't even know who sponsors us these days, but like BetDAC. Sorry, but I don't bet with BetDAC because they sponsored Charlton. I don't really care, to be honest with you. And like it's great that they do, but they haven't done anything that I can think of that has made me be like, oh, that's cool. I'll play for $5 with them on Saturday.
Well, they've hit their KPI just by you knowing who they are. I think that's
it. I mean, that's it, right? But it's so boring. There's so much more they could do. So I bet with Betway, and their odds are terrible. So I don't know why I do that.
Yeah, that's true. But you're right, and obviously the esports space. It's still very early days and unstructured in terms of I know what I'm getting for my sponsorship into a professional team player, whatever. I have an awesome question, which is I'd love to hear what you have to say on a personal note.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to spend as a brand into a team or a professional, structure, or someone like a streamer or an influencer, as you can say, because that's where a lot of content is going. And obviously on Twitch, you can kind of know what you're spending, you know what you're getting, right? The metrics are there, and you know what you're getting. So how, what would you prefer? You have so many streamers these days that are not professionals by any means. They're not, they're not athletes or gamers in that sense, but are huge in the content creation space. Ninja, for example, made 30 million last year in comparison to, I think it was Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's one of the biggest NBA stars, who made 26 million on his whole NBA season. So that's a crazy comparison. And in turn, Ninja's also a lot bigger when it comes to streaming and viewership numbers. So what would you do as a brand there? Would you prefer going on in a more professional route, or more on the influencer streamer route, which a lot of people are kind of looking?
I mean, I guess first and foremost, it depends what brand I am here. But as a general rule, as a general rule, regardless, I get where you're coming from. As a general rule, the team's route 100%, because a lot of the teams will also have content creators as an arm, right? Like most of the teams do. There's a big part of it. There's a big part of it. Pretty much all the teams do. Even like complexity, like, because there's the difference, right? There's Complexity, who are like one of the biggest, like, Dallas Cowboys owned, biggest historic esports organizations and teams. By that I mean, sorry, huge backing, big partners and stuff. And then there's FaZe Clan, for example, which is like a big and like successful competitive esports team. But there's the flip side of it, which is the YouTube stars and the streaming side and like the content creators, as you say. FaZe are much more like we're like an entertainment brand, right? Complexity are very much first and foremost like we're here to win everything, which I like. But that's like the competitive side of it, right? But that's not to say that if you did stuff with Complexity, you don't also get access to their players who have big fan bases themselves and who stream themselves. Also, if you go with like an individual streamer, like maybe they're like CS or Overwatch. No, now they're doing a bit of Valorant, and so you get like a little bit of change here and there. And maybe if you sign with an agency that represents numerous streamers, you'll be able to be like, oh, I'll do a bit of that, a bit of that. But Team Vitality, for example, is in, I think, 9 different games at the moment. They're in the LEC. They're very good in CSGO at the moment. They also have their very nice shiny HQ in Paris, and they now do something called VTV, which I think it's all French at the moment.
Different audiences.
Exactly. So you hit a lot, and it's easier by working with one organization. You know where you stand. They all have their own metrics and stuff like that. Like this is what something that esports rights holders generally can be better at, is proving the ROI to brands and showing that with like hard data and numbers, and also what matters for them, because that's what brands are used to getting, like sponsorship metric stuff in detail. And we could all be better at that in the esports space. But if I was a brand, I'd go with a team. Also, probably rather than a PA, most of the time, at least. Again, it's brand dependent, but because you just get a wider scope, and obviously, yeah, it depends on what you're looking for and stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely, because it's definitely it's definitely the more structured route. You know what you're gonna get, and that team has different audiences, like I say. Yeah. Whereas going to someone like Dr. Disrespect, you have no idea what's gonna happen, and the next day, boom, you're out.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I have a good one for you, because I know you're a football fan. We just discussed that. And on the traditional side, you've got a lot of, we had a chat with Ariel Powers a few weeks ago. She's a WNBA star, jumped into gaming. What do you think? And I know a lot of the Premier League players that are huge FIFA players. They love to play, jumping into gaming. What do you think about the traditional sports star jumping into the gaming space? And not only that, you can also touch on the traditional clubs like the Man Cities, the West Hams, jumping into the gaming space as well. Do you think that's gonna, is that just a bubble, or is that gonna continue to grow?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that it will continue to grow on both counts, right? Like on the individuals front, for starters. And this, like, in the pandemic and lockdown times, there were more FIFA tournament than like hours in the day. I think in the first month of the pandemic, it was god awful, to be honest. But it's cool. There are people like Trent Alexander-Arnold, like TAA. He's good. He's really good. But there's people like that like, this is what the thing, right, with esports. It's like, as I said, like, I'm a Charlton fan in football, and that's mostly because of, like, that's a history thing, right? Like, my granddad was born there and grew up there, and that's where I was taken as a kid and all of that. Esports teams don't really have that yet, at least. Maybe in time, I'm sure in time, but that will take a while, right? So a lot of the time, fans aren't as loyal to esports teams as fans are. There's not that die-hard loyalty as you see certainly in football, and I'm sure in like NFL and NBA and stuff, right? That loyalty doesn't really exist, not to the same degree, and not to the same like breadth and depth anyway. Oftentimes, the fans are fans of a certain player first, for example. So if the player switches club, see you later. I personally see. It's a weird one because I see that. That I do see that changing in esports, and there'll be more and more like hardcore Fnatic fans. Like everyone from Copenhagen will be a North fan and stuff like that. I'm sure that will happen to some degree at least. But on the flip side of that, I actually see it going the other way, at least to some degree, in football and such. And that is a part of these agencies that work with the likes of like TAA. I saw something, I think it was with him or someone at the back, Under Armour. And like Sterling is a great example of doing loads of like really cool brand campaigns, right? And I think more and more as the individuals, footballers and sports stars generally become individual brands in their own right, that will happen on the flip side. And I think a part of that and a way for them to fast track that will be for fans to have more access to them and for them to be less of just like that guy or whoever they see on Saturday playing on the pitch, and someone that's more as a person is personal, is charming. Maybe they're funny. Who knows? TAA might be really funny. Then if he streams all the time, we'd find out, right? And I think that will happen more and more. And once they if Cristiano Ronaldo started streaming on Switch and stuff, it would be insane. And what he could charge accordingly would be crazy. And I see that happening more and more, especially as imagine if players try to do that in like the Roy Keane era, right? They wouldn't be in the next Saturday. But I think that's changing, like that mindset. I mean, we all saw the Roy Keane thing the other day. I imagine you did. He's mental. But
it's a rough one.
Yeah, but he's a bit of a throw.
His personality right? is rough. It is raw, and I think that works for him. That's why he's on. That's why he's on Skype.
Yeah,
it works for him. That personality really does come out, and so just like you're saying, for the players, it is a great way to become more personal and get your consistency as far as content goes. So producing consistent content and giving an insight to your true fans of who you really are, right?
Yeah.
And on the team side, I would say it's a great way to kind of move your audience towards another area where you're also producing different types of content. And it doesn't have to be, Charlton doesn't only have to create FIFA content.
Exactly.
But they can also create, Fortnite content, Call of Duty content, whatever they want.
North, the team I mentioned, the Copenhagen team, is a perfect example. So North is like the CSGO org, for those who don't know, is like a successful CSGO team. It was created by FC Copenhagen, like one of, if not the biggest team in Denmark, and Nordisk Film Studio. And their streaming facility, so where the players stream from, I believe it is still at the training grounds, like built into the training ground of FC Copenhagen. And whilst the branding and such is different, if you're a North fan, like you definitely know about the connection to Copenhagen, and probably like you support both, right? And then on the flip side, that if you're an FC Copenhagen fan and you start liking CSGO, you're probably going to look at North as like your team first and foremost, right? It's natural, but it also targets a bit of a different audience. And also, I've not seen, and I don't think we'll see anytime soon, the very big football clubs enter Counter-Strike because of the brand risk, because it's terrorist. FC Copenhagen have been able to enter it, and they wanted to enter that game because that game is massive in Scandinavia, but they weren't obviously ready to do it, I don't imagine, under the Copenhagen banner. But under North, something new that is connected to them, but different enough that it's not scary for the mums and dads and whatnot.
Past the risks there. Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you reckon, was the shift from their original audience onto the gaming audience? What percentage do you think moved over?
In terms of what, sorry?
In terms of their original audience kind of following them on the gaming as well. What percentage do you think jumped on as well?
As in fans of
of the football,
Yeah.
jumping on and also being engaged on the gaming side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd love to see hard stat. Very, very hard to say. I would say for that in particular, because it is CS:GO and because it's Denmark, probably a fair amount, right? Like probably a fair amount. Like it's there. It's like it's somewhat to some degree like home of Counter-Strike, right? And a lot of good talent comes out of there, and it's known, and it's obviously like football as well. The core fan base is generally blokes, and obviously like younger blokes that are and teenage boys become the fans, who are often also the somewhat the core audience for CS:GO. I mean, it's different. Like another interesting one is like Barcelona entering Rocket League under the Barcelona banner, right? And obviously Barcelona's a bit interesting for starters because I think they have a basketball team, right? That's pretty successful.
Oh, yeah.
And they have teams in maybe hockey or something. Yeah, exactly. Like a sports club more than
a football team as well.
Yeah, I think they got a football team as well. But yeah, they I don't actually know what they've been doing, but they've got a Rocket League team in like the main competition in Europe, and that's under Barcelona. So I'd love to know, how many people have been watching, because of that connection. Yeah, some stats on that. I mean, it's anyone's guess. I think anyone that told you would be lying, but I'd love to see some like accurate stats on both those things for sure.
For sure. Well, let's get on that together then.
Yeah, let's do it. Good.
For sure. Look, last question. I know we're a bit over time, but I would love to ask you a little bit about the gambling space, because I know that's kind of where you started your career essentially.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of bookmakers jumping into the space. You have a lot of sponsorships in the gambling space kind of jumping on board. So I'd love to hear your opinion on just the gambling space in general, how it's going to go, what's going to happen. Is it a good thing or a bad thing for the industry?
Yeah. I mean, how long we got? But so the way we start,
we can do another one on this.
I'm untethered.
Short. I know we can go on for another hour.
Yeah, we'll be here all night. But so the way I started, I was writing for a company called SBC, so Sports Betting Communities, the SBC News. I think they're .com now, but based in the UK. But basically, I suggested to them around 2014, maybe 15-ish time, to start covering esports betting news from an industry perspective, right? When it was still in some ways it still is, but when it was still a fairly new market. I think that was maybe before Betway even offered it. I don't know. And who are now like arguably the leader in it. This is when like Pinnacle offered it and not many others, to be honest. But yeah, we started to cover it a lot more, brought into some of their events, and then we decided to launch what SBC do, but for esports more broadly. And so that's the B2B events agency, media arm, agency arm, events arm, blah, 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 and so on. So we're still very tied in with them. And so we keep very up to date with the goings on in the betting space more broadly and that industry, but obviously also all of the crossover stuff. I think we're fairly uniquely positioned in that space. My thoughts on it, I mean, I've banged on about this for years now, but I think that the stance of Riot Games, the stance of Activision Blizzard is that we do not allow bookmakers and betting companies as sponsors in our competitions, right? And we don't endorse it. Like when someone started offering odds on Rocket League, Sonics, the developer, immediately issued a statement saying that we do not endorse this. And sorry, but it doesn't matter, and no one really cares because the bookmakers can offer odds on it anyway, and so they will do. All that stance does to me by not allowing, like Valve do, right? Like ESL had sponsors like Betway, Blast, I think Pinnacle, maybe they're the other way around now. It's hard to keep up. But a lot of these CSGO tournaments and Dota to some degree as well have had bookmakers as partners, which I personally think is a good thing. And I think that stance by Riot and Axie is dangerous because if you just shy away from it, we don't allow betting sponsors in our space, right? That's not a good thing. So that's fine, but it will happen anyway. And so the people that you try to be claiming to protect as fans are then just ill-informed. So then all that will happen is that other bookmakers that are not as well regulated as the likes of Betway and 365 and plenty more, then the other bookmakers for whom, trust me, you can get like licenses that offer books for. It's not actually that hard in some territories, right? And so like me and you should set one up, right? We should set one up. But that's obviously awful because then those companies that are not very well regulated at all can offer odds to unsuspecting fans of, let's say, League of Legends who don't really know the betting landscape, who don't know that this, oh, it looks nice and shiny and looks like a nice website, I'll trust them with my money. Probably shouldn't have done that, right? Whereas the very properly regulated ones, especially like UKGC, like UK regulated books, are generally the most regulated in the world, at least in my understanding of it. It's the hardest to get. That's a good thing. And like all that means is then it's like kind of like a blue tick of they're at least somewhat more legitimate, right? And I'm not saying I want bookmakers to be all over esports team shirts and whatever and all over tournaments, but also
working with regulators.
Exactly. And like it to be, I want it to be more regulated in esports. I want it there to be more limits on it in esports than there is in the Premier League, for example. Like the Premier League, 11 of the 20 teams, their main sponsor is a betting company. I don't think that's good, but I also don't think it's a bad thing that they're allowed to sponsor these teams and allowed to enable these teams to function and monetize, right? Like there's a lot of esports teams who are crying out for sponsors, and there's bookmakers that are there with that money, but for various reasons, in terms of who can make the decisions, they're not allowed to. And I think that's bad because it stunts the growth of the industry and the ecosystem. And as to the point made earlier, it's not protecting the people that they seem to claim it is protecting, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I agree, Sam. And look, I'm not going to jump in too much, but I'd love to have you on another segment that, you know, we're going to definitely discuss the gambling space. And I think it's another, you know, huge topic in this industry that needs to be looked at and tackled. So would love to invite you to that.
Yeah, please, man. I mean, I'm on one tomorrow if you want to come. It's
great.
SBC.
Send us the link to, and we share it across to our network as well.
Cool.
Let's wrap it up. I know I've obviously gone way over with you, and I appreciate your time, and it's been fun, to be honest. So, you think you want to end it with anything we should look out for? I'll definitely share tomorrow's panel or you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anything you guys are doing that we should keep our eyes out for?
Oh yeah, what do I say? Like closing pitch, isn't it? Oh god. We announced our next events in the second week of July. So if you go on to esportsinsider.com, you can sign up to our newsletter quite easily. It's not annoying. It's only 2 days a week, I promise. And it's really good. Really good. So we have our next digital events coming up. We'll also be announcing reasonably soon the second season of our WFH League, which is our corporate esports league in partnership with Platform. And that will be online again. Yeah, it's WFH because it's work from home, win from home, which we're really.
No, I love that. And it's time to have this going on for sure. It's summer. It's still COVID in a way, so
yeah,
should be. No, look, it was great chatting. Obviously, I really appreciate your time again. We'll definitely get you on because I think we can do like 5 hours easy.
Yeah, probably.
Topic. I really enjoyed your time, and I think the audience loved it as well. You'll be getting a bunch of subscriptions to the newsletter for sure.
I'll check it.
So you know, we'll set that up and definitely put the links down there wherever needed.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming on. Let's you know, we'll definitely you know, see you soon.
Thank you very much, man. Take care.
Take it easy. All right, guys. I think Kevin.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Well done on that. It was a huge learning experience right now because you heard about. I was in the background listening. So digital to physical now. We've heard that from a few different people, but not in esports. We were talking with some traditional sports people in F1 and actually rugby that want to go physical again. And now we heard it from esports. And Sam, and one of the bigger heads in marketing and advertising, as far as it goes in esports, and they want to go physical.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think it's fantastic. Just like how everybody says there will be no physical arenas again, and we're going to go digital. I'm like, no, we're not there yet, guys. Okay, we're not there yet in the world of never again attending a Manchester United game or a Fnatic match or whatever. you're not going to convince me of that yet.
This is the start of at least creating a digital identity.
Yeah.
Which is just, something that me and Sam touched on are like, the traditional sports stars that do like gaming. If you don't, obviously you can figure out a way to get your brand, into a digital side of things. It doesn't have to be gaming, but the guys that do like gaming, it's a good way for them to kind of make that pivot now and start to create, consistency, and consistent content. It's all content, right? When you're playing football on Saturdays and you've done nothing the rest of the week, then it's not enough. And I think the more consistency you build, the more strength you build for your brand. So maybe
and you're seeing some sports stars already do that, and then you're seeing some sports stars totally against it. So we'll see how both end up, but. Yeah, our time is running out here. Another minute. We're just going to close it up. Next week, we have in between two. Actually, we might have two next week. We might have one on investments and then advertising. But we're ramping up. It's snowballing. Jay, have a great night from Dubai, and we'll catch you next Monday.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks for joining. See you next week.
Take care, everybody.